on green.
Hi everyone, Tony Tonkin here from Child Protection Party. Glad you can be with us on this Saturday afternoon. We do have an apology because today we were going to have a debate around adoption, but some people got a little confused over what that was actually about, and so we've postponed that, and Avery and I, because we're already set up here, we decided that we'd just have a live feed and perhaps a chat with you about things that are happening in relation to child protection, looking after kids, making sure that the outcomes for kids are improved. So we have Avery with me in the studio today. Hi Avery.
Hi Tony, how are you today?
I'm good, mate. We're only sitting a few feet away from each other. This is how we had it set up before, didn't we?
Yeah, it is. It's a little odd sitting here with you're over my left shoulder. I can see you on there, and yet I'm talking that way.
It's a bit of an odd arrangement.
It's an odd arrangement, yes.
This is because we were going to do the debate, and Avery was going to produce all of that for us. So and is the master. He's learning the software that we have. So it's important that he has that experience, I guess. So look, we do apologise for not having done the debate. We are planning to redo that at some other time, and Avery and I will be letting you know when that will be taking place. But there's some interesting things happening around Child Protection Party anyway, and we thought because we're here, we'll just take this opportunity to speak to you. And if you have anything that you want to say to us about issues that are concerning you, then please let us know. Have a conversation with us and we'll be able to talk through some of those issues perhaps with you as well. I noticed the other day that there were a number of issues that arose from one of the posts that I put up a few days ago around family law, and my issues in particular with the family law court, and a couple of clients that I had during the week who raised those issues, and there were a number of people asking questions and inquiring about the validity and the way that some people within the family court system behave. And if you have any of those experiences, we'd certainly like to hear from you. Avery, we've been doing a bit of a thing around people telling us their stories. So perhaps you could talk a little bit about the importance of that, because you had an opportunity to which is going up on the internet at some point, I think, isn't it, about your story and what that means to you?
Yeah, the idea behind my story, the My Story project, is that we get people to tell us a little bit about their history, what happened to them in their life, whether it, like in my case, I had a very fortunate childhood. I wish that everybody had the sort of childhood that I had. And last week, Tony came around to my house and we sat down and we recorded this, me telling people what my childhood had been like, and how things that happened, not to me personally, but how things that had happened back in 2015 inspired me to join the Child Protection Party. We want to interview other people as well. We want to interview every member of our team, for example, to learn from them what inspired them to join the Child Protection Party. And we want to talk to members of the public who have issues, we'll say, with their local child protection department, or who don't have any issues with the department personally, whether their kids haven't been taken away, for example, but they are concerned about the behaviours and the legislation and kids being taken away and all that sort of stuff. We want to talk with them because it's by talking to everybody that we get to, it helps to us to develop our policy. It's not just the 12, 13, 14 of us that we've got at the moment doing the saying this is how things are going to be. These are our ideas. We want everybody else's ideas. Tony.
Yes, and I think that it's really important that people recognise, Avery, that the Child Protection Party is your party. It's about you becoming involved with us. We're trying to encourage as many people. We have the most fabulous, in the 5 or 6 years, Avery, we've been running the party. I think this is the most dynamic of the teams that we've had. Avery's nodding. You'll see him nodding in a moment when he does the shot to him. But yes, certainly we have made significant changes within the party, and but the basic emphasis always has been about caring for you and making sure that your interests were cared for, and that your needs were met, and that the things that concern you, you're talking to us about. So we'll have a discussion now about why it is that, and Avery talked about this in his video, which I hope all of you get a chance to see. I think it's an important state. So Avery made a number of important statements in the video about not only why the Child Protection Party is important to him, but why as a political party is just important. And one of the things I think that has come out of that primarily is that we are the only political party that work with families, that work with the kids at the forefront of everything that we do, and that drives us to do what it is that we're doing. And in order to us to be really successful, we certainly need as much support as we can. And at the moment we're encouraging, so we have an executive on the way here in South Australia that's just dealing with South Australian stuff, and then we've got one in WA, we've got one starting in WA by Clinton DeYoung, and then we've already got one established in Victoria. So we've got these groups of people in each state to gather together to start talking about the state issues that you have, so that we can put up candidates and start advocating for those issues which concern you, particularly in each of those states. The states that we're really looking at now, and we'd really like some help from, are Queensland, and we haven't got anybody in Northern Territory. We've got very few people in ACT, and New South Wales. Well, it's a bit disappointing that we haven't got the number of people that we need to have in New South Wales. So if you're in New South Wales, Queensland, Northern Territory, ACT, and you would like to contribute to participating in the Child Protection Party and making a difference for kids, then please contact us. Contact Avery. Is that right, Avery?
Yep. Yeah. People can contact me. They can write to me at secretary@childprotection.party. One thing with what Tony's just saying there about if you want to help us to build a team, etc., is that this month until the 31st of this month, our membership is free. So no fees whatsoever. Normally it's $12 per year, which is, I don't think is onerous, but at the moment, where if you want to join, it is completely free. Ideally, we'd like you to be enrolled. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be, and you should be enrolled to vote, because without you being enrolled to vote, we can't use your name to help register the party in your state. But that doesn't mean you should not apply. If you haven't enrolled to vote, you can still join the party. We can still use your skills and talents and knowledge to help further our aims. Tony?
I think one of the things, Avery, that is of interest to me is the fact that, well, actually, I'll reframe this. This came out of a conversation I had with a woman last night. So it was a recorded conversation which will be available on Kids Matter podcast probably later on today, tomorrow. And it was the interesting thing. There were many interesting things about this woman. This woman needs some financial help, and I'm hoping that you haven't seen it yet, Avery. But when you do, I hope that you can find a way to perhaps put up a GoFundMe page or something similar for this woman, because she's desperate for help. But this woman had a grandchild removed from her child a few years ago, and the department chose, they kind of bluffed her into thinking that, it was the right thing to do for her to take the child, which she has two children, incidentally, both with some form of disability. And so this is a grandparent taking on those kids, and she thought that there was an order in relation to these children. Now, I do urge you, every one of you, to listen to this podcast when it's available. Tune into Kids Matter on Spotify, and you'll be able to find it. Not to mention all the other podcasts we've done on Spotify or through Anchor. But the important thing really focused around the fact that the department, who insisted that she takes these children, have chosen not to fund anything that she's done. So she's had to leave work. She hasn't had any additional income apart from what's available through Centrelink. She's got 2 kids who destroy and rip everything apart in the house. Not their fault. They have a whole host of behavioural issues. She's an older person. She is broke. She hasn't got a car in order to transport these kids from A to B, and they need a lot of transportation because they need to go to a lot of services. When you hear this audio, she cries a lot during it because she's so much in desperation to get the help that she needs, and no one, and I mean no one, offers it to her. And she was conned to take on these kids in the first place because she believed that there was an order, and later on discovered that there wasn't. And so the department, so I raised this issue with her by saying, look, the department have saved between $150,000 and $350,000 a year, probably around $300,000 because these kids have got special needs. So around $350,000 per child. So that's $700,000 the government have saved from her caring for them, and they don't give her a cent. Nothing. No help, no resources, nothing. They don't want to know about her. Now, I see this as kind of a criminal. It's a criminal activity to palm off kids to somebody because their mother simply could not look after them. I think she's in jail currently, and then expect the caregiver, in this case it's a kinship carer, to look after these kids and not offer them any money when they are saving around $700,000 a year. If they gave her $100,000, they're still better off, you know? So they've missed their obligation. They don't see their obligation. So this is where I get really frustrated, because they are there supposedly to look after kids and to keep kids safe. That doesn't mean that you just pass them over to somebody else. Where kids have special needs and other things and they can't live with their biological parent, it's under those circumstances that you should fund whatever it is happens once those kids are removed. But they have chosen not to, because they're dicks, quite frankly, because they're insensitive individuals. And we, as a party, now, well, I'm saying to Avery, because Avery hasn't heard this yet. You haven't heard this, mate, but I want us to look at ways by which we can put together some funding to buy this woman a car, because that's what she needs. And we as a community should get together and help her, right? Now that's a practical thing that I think we can do. Now, whether people contribute, feel passionate enough about what this woman's plight is, I don't know. When you hear the when you hear the audio, I'm sure that you may. But we need to find ways as a political party to provide that form of assistance where possible. We don't have the money ourselves. I tell you what, if I had enough money right now to give this woman enough money for a car, I would, because she really does need it. And it would save her so much stress. So she spends a lot of her time trying not to be stressed in front of these kids that have got autism and other things. And because she realises that would increase their problems, so she chooses not to do that. But when she's talking about it, and she's emotional because she's at the end, has no money, needy kids, and a whole host of other things, and the department that have insisted that she takes these kids have chosen to do nothing. it's a crime. It really is a crime, and we need to hold them accountable for that. So when you hear that audio, please, and Avery will talk about. Avery, does that sound like a reasonable thing for you to do, to set up some sort of a GoFundMe thing?
Yeah, we certainly can do. When you started talking about this particular person, I thought, excuse me, I thought I recognised the story, and I actually spoke to her a few days ago. And what you're saying about when you described her situation, that confirmed that it's definitely the same person I spoke to. I've just recently registered an account with an Australian organisation called My Cause. We've had an account with GoFundMe for quite some time, but I learned that with GoFundMe, the fees that they charge are quite considerable. If somebody was to donate, say, $100, it'll actually cost them something like $117. I mean, I wish somebody would donate $100, but if they did, it would be $117 that would come off their credit card. With My Cause, it's about $2. So
is that South Australian one, Avery?
My Cause is an Australian-based company.
Yeah.
GoFundMe is American, and we all know what the Americans.
Well, we don't want to give the Americans any more money, do we?
They charge like wounded bulls.
Yeah.
So I could certainly create a My Cause fundraiser for this lady. I could use the audio file that you've recorded. We can tell her story in such a way that we don't identify her and the kids, so we're not breaking any rules. I don't know if we are, but if they're not officially, if there's no orders, then they can be named.
You can mention the kids and do whatever you do.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we could tell their story on My Cause, pick a target number of dollars to get her it'd be nice to buy her a new car, but pick a target number to get her a decent second-hand car, and then see what we can do, raise that money and buy her that car. We can certainly have a go at that.
And I guess what I'm saying, Avery, too, is that we could find where there are practical ways that we could step in. I guess this is one of them. A lot of people ask us for information. I had someone call me yesterday, actually, and this is someone that I know, and she asked me, she's pregnant again, and she asked me if the department were going to remove this child, her fifth child, I think. And my response to her, I mean, she's just a lovely woman, but she's got such a history of inappropriate relationships and whatever, and there's some intellectual challenges she faces. And I simply had to say, yeah, they will. That's what they'll do. I'm not suggesting that it's right. I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't have this child. I'm not suggesting the department shouldn't find ways to work with you so you could have this child. I'm not suggesting that. If the question is, will they remove the child? Well, yeah, I know them enough to know that they will. And so people often ask us questions, I reckon, Avery, as if we're going to be able to provide the magical solution to that problem. And we're pragmatic, to say the least. And we're going to be able to offer ideas that may help you, or if whatever's happening, I don't know how else to put it, but sometimes the answers are really obvious. The other times, the one I think that gets me the most, and most people would relate to this, is I've changed my life. I'm a completely different person now than I was when the department first came into my life. I don't have the DV relationship anymore, and I don't have the drug problem. I've overcome so many things. My life is different. And there are heaps of people, and there'll be people listening to us right now, Avery, who know that their lives are different.
Yeah.
And then the question then becomes, why is it I can't get my kids back? And my response to that is, well, basically you should. So that's a no-brainer. But the other one, the problem with that though is that the department settles on however your life has been, not about how your life is. And that is a failing of social work. In fact, that we need to acknowledge the strengths, the changes that people have made in their lives, and we need to then offer them the opportunities and supports that they perhaps didn't have initially whenever, for example, your kid was taken. So, I think that's the biggest challenge to all of us is, and particularly those of you out there who do believe that you've changed your lives significantly, to find that no one appreciates or even in a sense wants to reward you for the changes that you've made in your life. I find that particularly distressing. I think, Avery, you probably speak to people too who will talk about the same thing.
Yeah, I do. I often get calls from people who've got some sort of a problem with the department. Sometimes I'll pass them to Tony, sometimes I'll pass them to the Riley Foundation. But I hear these stories from people. The thing that I've heard quite a lot, Tony's just touched on it, is somebody was on drugs and now they're completely clean and they've been clean for 3, 4, 5 years, and their kids are still with the department because the department does not and is not willing to see that people can change. They think you were a drug addict then, you're a drug addict now, you can go back onto drugs at any time. We are not going to pay any attention to your current circumstances. We don't care what you say. Tony said it before, they're a bunch of dicks. They just do not care. Tony.
Yeah, they and you know our role, I guess, Avery, is to make them as accountable as possible. I for years have sent. This is another bugbear I had this week. It almost sounds like my life is full of trauma, but other people's normally. But so for years I've been sending off these complaints, letters, whatever, to DCP, to the minister. So I send them direct to the minister. Not that she ever reads them. I'm aware of that. She gets someone else to. And they send back this templated response. Now, I've talked about this before, but it really pissed me off this week because I got one that actually gave me... Normally they give you a kind of a very vague explanation that says, I'm not going to tell you anything. They didn't even bother to do that on this one occasion. It was really short. It was only a couple of paragraphs. Normally they're a bit more long-winded and they tell you the same thing, I guess. But I know that if I'd spoken to... I can't remember whether I did this in another feed. Yeah, I'll do it again. I know that if I had spoken to the district centre manager, whom I know, who's a really nice person and would listen to me, that I could have resolved the issue, or we could have found out what was happening. So it was about sexual abuse, or sexual assault, I should say, of a 11-year-old by a 16-year-old in resi care, and they chose. So what they're doing is they're choosing not to take any responsibility whatsoever, or not to at least have a conversation with me. Now, I'm not interested in political outcome being, I'm not interested in going to the media over it. I just want to have a conversation so that I know that they've taken action which would ensure that this child is safe. So they could have come back to me and said, the 16-year-old has been removed. We have had conversations with the parent. In fact, would you like to come along and be a part of those conversations as well, so that you can see exactly what we're doing in order to ensure that this 11-year-old kid and her siblings, I hasten to add, are safe? Nothing. Not a thing. They don't want to get involved with us, Avery, at all, because they... See, I don't know whether they're... See, this is why we're different as a political party. I'm not in the business of making, and some people will disagree with me over this, but I'm not in the business of making political points all the time so that we get media coverage. If someone contacts us, I want to resolve that issue with whoever has created it. I don't want that necessarily go direct to the media. You know, we had that case where the two teenagers in the care of the minister got pregnant. That became a news item, already done. You know, it's already the news item. So we needed to make that known. We needed to offer our thoughts about all of that. That's fine. But behind the scenes, all I want to do is make sure these kids are safe. That's all. It's not too complicated. I don't know whether anybody from DCP or any other child protection system will listen to this, but I just want them to know it's just about us making sure that these kids are safe. Now I set up the Riley Foundation some time ago with Avery, and I know that to some extent they kind of deal with that, but my guess is they're a bit reluctant to appear to be as confrontational as we would. But it is important. It is important that we highlight the issues and seek solutions for them, independent of it becoming a political outcry. So in other words, we don't want to make it a political event, but we want to resolve what's happening to that one child, right? So I got really frustrated during the week because I thought, bugger it, I'm never sending you. I don't know, I would have sent hundreds and hundreds of these letters over the years, these requests for information about people I'm working with, and get no response. Okay, bugger you, Rachel Sanderson, that's it. Not going anymore. However, from now on, we will be doing a press release around every one of these instances, because not one of these instances I've ever reported direct to the department have we done a press release on. So now, because you refuse to have a conversation with me and resolve these issues in-house, just between you and I, we will make it political, because you will not respond to me appropriately. Done. Dusted. From now on, anything happens, I'm sending, Avery's got a list of 400 odd media outlets, and we're going to send each of those media outlets my complaint about the department. And there are some there that are horrific. This one about the 16-year-old and the 11-year-old, if the media got hold of that, they'd be, and I'll refer them, if the media want to know who that person is, and I've got permission to share that information from the parent, I will, right? And they will get involved. So the penalty the department is now going to have to pay for not having those conversations with me, for treating me like shit, have now changed. The rules have changed. I've been appliant, I've been agreeable, pliable even, and accepting of what they've sent me for 5-6 years now. It's over. Does that make sense, Avery?
It certainly does. My view, I mean, I'm one of the ones who disagree with you a little bit. Firstly,
Avery's never disagreed with me before.
I never disagree with him. Actually, it's the other way around. He doesn't normally disagree with me. My view is that some of these stories we've got to be political about it, because you can go and cry on Rachel Sanderson's shoulder as much as you want about something, and if it's not public, if the public doesn't know what she's up to, or I'm saying Rachel Sanderson, it could be Chance in Tasmania, it doesn't matter who it is, the Child Protection Minister, if we don't hold them responsible publicly, they've got no incentive to change their behaviours at all. We've got to hold them accountable publicly, and that means going to the media.
I guess, Avery, it's kind of what I'm saying though, because I work in two fields, I guess. I work with the client as a social worker and a therapist and an advocate, and then we have the political party. So where the client is asking me to do something that's at an advocate level, then I do it. The problem that I've had over the years is setting up the CPP, Avery, has not been necessarily helpful in terms of some of the advocacy work that I do, because the department get confused because they don't. And I've had social workers tell me this. I don't know how you can be doing advocacy and therapy, and they're saying, I don't know why you're here advocating, and you're also founder of the Child Protection Party. Like I'm not even a member of Parliament, for Christ's sake. Yet they kind of treat you like you're some sort of you've got leprosy, or you've got some sort of contagious disease, just because I have a political party that wants to make a difference. They're a pain in the ass, and And it's come to a point though where I'm never confused about it. I know that if I'm doing therapeutic work, that's therapeutic work and that's social work and other stuff. I know that from the political perspective, and I agree with Avery that we need to perhaps make things more political than they have been in the past. But I've been able to define that dividing line between the therapy and what needs to be done with the client, and then the political stuff. So gloves are off. What can I say? So if you've got an issue that you think is important that we need to discuss, let's have that discussion. Because from now on, we'll be sending out media releases. We will be, if you send us enough information, and just don't, can I just say, and Avery, you might like to talk to this, the sort of information that you would require in order for us to organise a press release.
Yeah, to organise a press release, tell me something that's going on in the, something that's happening in the news. It doesn't have to be in the news. It can be something.
But what about something in their own lives, though?
Yeah, I was just saying, it could be something in your own life that you want highlighting to the media, and send us the details of what it is, how it's impacted you, what you think should be done or could be done to fix that issue. Send that to me, secretary@childprotection.party, and we will see what we can do about writing up a press release and distributing it to those 400 plus media outlets. We never know what might happen there.
But it has to be, I think, Avery, it has to be, it can't be the department has chosen not to return my kids and I've changed my life. Like that, that kind of, as appropriate that is in terms of acknowledging, that's not the sort of stuff that's going to get someone from the media interested. The kids who got pregnant, yeah. Kids that are sexually abused while in care, yeah, that's going to get significant attention. But other stuff. So think about it, if you know of something that's happened that you believe is newsworthy, contact Avery and have that conversation with him about, can we think about putting something in. But tell the story. Give us the story, we'll write it up and we'll send it on to the press so that they can become aware of it. And remember, give us permission. So Avery will send you a consent to release information form and give us permission to talk about it. But if you want to do something else that's, I think, really important to us, contact us so we can do a video or do an audio of your experiences. This is a bit divergent, but we are I'm putting together a documentary on parents' experiences of children being removed from them. So we need a bank, like, I don't know, 20, 30 stories that are going to us, so that we can eventually, I don't know how we're going to produce that necessarily. I don't know what the outcome will be like. I just know that we need the stories. So tell us your story. The woman that called us, that I spoke to yesterday and did the audio on, was fantastic. She did have the equipment to do the video, regretfully. But if you can, we've got the technology to put all of that together. If you're in South Australia, if possible, if you live in the metropolitan area, I'll come around to your home. Avery and I will come around, we'll do the videoing, we'll have the conversation, we'll produce it. But we need you to tell us that you've got a story. So the stories that you're telling me about you've changed, let's tell that story. And let's get that out there. The pain and anguish you went through when your children were removed, regardless of the circumstances, let's talk about that story as well, because that's really significant. People, I think one of the problems that we have, and Avery, you might not just come in on this, but one of the conversations we have with people is about the pain and the distress that they have been through when a child has been removed. And that is something that's not acknowledged. One of the problems is that most people see the parents of kids that have been removed as crappy parents, that it's all your fault, that you shouldn't have done whatever it is you've done that's caused this to happen in the first place. The other thing is that we need to convey the human face behind these kids who have been removed. The woman who lost her kids through the family court that I spoke to the other day, is the most beautiful, wonderful, intelligent, smart woman or person that you could ever meet. She's fabulous, a great mum. Why is this system so crappy that it chose to side with an abusive father? You know, so, but let's hear her story. Let's put a face to that story so that you can understand. And it was when if we do the documentary in an appropriate way, we will have a collection of stories that have great meaning to everybody. So let's find a way that we can put those stories together to convey your experience around having a child removed. We're not in the business of judging you, and that's not the purpose. The purpose is to be able to present that story in a way that helps other people to understand what your experience has been like. Because the reality is that most people will say to us that that no one seems to understand. I had someone say to me the other day, no one seems to listen. You're the first person that's ever listened to me. It's not all that hard, this listening thing. But clearly for a lot of people, particularly people in the Department of Child Protection, it's a very difficult thing for them to do. They struggle with just shutting up and listening to what someone has to say and acknowledging it. We're doing that, but we're doing it in a unique way because we want to video your stories so that we can have this documentary at the end of the day. Do you want to add anything to that, Avery?
Oh yeah, it could be that if you do one of these videos, well, firstly, if you're concerned about having your face on the camera, we've got the technology to blur your face. If you're concerned about your voice being recognised, we've got the technology to change your voice, so you could still come on, do a video, and people won't recognise who you are, won't recognise your voice. So you don't need to concern yourself on that side. You just tell us that's what you want us to do, make it anonymous, and we can do so. The other thing is that it's just occurred to me is that telling your story this way could be cathartic. It could be something that helps you to I don't know if come to terms with what's happening is the right way to put it, but it could be something that helps you internally to deal with everything that's going on. I'd echo what Tony said about the department. They once upon a time, somebody with mental health issues, they were very, very stigmatized, and fortunately, with the stigma on mental health issues is disappearing. It hasn't gone completely, but it is disappearing. People who have had their children taken away, as Tony just said, you must be a bad parent, you must be a drug addict, you must be a hooker or something like that, and the stigma is still there, and there's no sign of it disappearing. And maybe again, these videos, as well as being possibly cathartic for you, can help to change the minds of the people in the department, in the people in the ministry, etc. Tony.
And I think the public perception too, Avery, of who people are that are involved needs to change.
Yeah.
Most of the people, I reckon, 80 to 90% of the people that choose to work with us or choose to contact us are really decent people. Really, there's the 10 to 20% of people who are still drug abusers, who are still violent, who are still doing that. But they're a really small percentage, and there are even those people amongst that 80% who are occasionally involved in drugs and might choose to have a lousy relationship or whatever. But they're really good people, and that's what I love about the work that I've done over the last, we'll do this work for 30 years, I guess. But, since we've been looking at child protection and particularly well-being for kids in general, the people that we encounter are really good people. And I think the community needs to understand how good you actually are. So the idea of this video, the documentary, is to get rid of the stigma that's attached around issues concerning child protection. So if they get to know you, hear you, see you, hear your story, then they're likely to develop a completely different version of who these people are. And I'm sure there's lots of people out there who are judging you because you've had your kids removed, would no longer be able to do that because they just see things so differently. Now, Avery, are there any messages of note that
We've had several messages. Wendy Hawkins, I'm going to be looking away from the camera because I can't read this. Wendy Hawkins saying, people telling their stories is very emotive and may also change people's minds and get more support for the party along with more understanding about the system, which is exactly what you were just saying. She's also said about that lady that we were talking about that you were talking about earlier, who's the grandparent.
Mm-hmm.
She said, I think it was supposed to be. Where's it? I can't see where it's gone to. She said something to the effect that this particular lady can get the help that she needs, can get the funding. She's entitled to it, and because the kids are, I can't see the message on here, but she said that because the kids are have got disabilities, the funding that she is entitled to, she said she's entitled to a carer payment. And because the kids have got disabilities, she's entitled to higher carer payments. And Wendy has successfully fought this case in Victoria.
Well,
So
I reckon we could put Wendy in contact with her, and then hopefully, if we put Wendy in contact with her, perhaps then Wendy can have a conversation with her about that as well. I mean, we could also go off and do our funding thing for her. I think we still should do that. But yeah, Wendy can have a conversation with her and see what she has or has not done. Because sometimes it is, Avery, that people just don't have. Sometimes I reckon people get so overwhelmed that they don't, they can't see their way out of the problem. And sometimes people that are rational and who do understand or have been through that, I know Wendy has too, in terms of her own kids. So. She and this woman need to have this conversation, so I'll pass the number on to her, and perhaps you could call her.
Yeah.
Anything else there on that list?
Not on that. Most of the messages have disappeared, and Wendy's just made that comment there. Most of my messages have disappeared. There's one thing I'd like to quickly mention before we go, and that is that right at the moment, you were talking about earlier about the different projects that we're working on, mainly about the My Story project. I've been working on federal registration. We've been registered now for nearly 3 years, and every election cycle we have to prove, in other words, every 3 years federally we have to prove that we still qualify to register, to remain registered as a party. I'm going through that process right now. Sometime in the not too distant future, people will start getting phone calls from the Australian Electoral Commission. What they will be doing is saying, your name has been given to us as being a member of the Child Protection Party. Are you a member? Do you support their ongoing registration with the as a political party? And what we need is that if you get such a call, that you answer yes. If you get you got your phone and there's voicemail there and it's from the AEC, they will tell you that the Australian Electoral Commission. Answer that call, return the call and say, yes, I'm a member of the Child Protection Party and I support their ongoing registration. Because if we don't pass their membership test, which means 50 out of 550 people have got to say, yes, I support it. Out of 550 people, if I think it's about 8 or 9 say no, they don't ask 550, they'll ask about 50. And if 8 or 9 of them say no, then we are deregistered. And we can't afford to have that, because if we get deregistered, it means that we can't get people above the line in state elections or federal elections, which greatly diminishes our chances of getting somebody elected.
Well, it diminishes our chances of representing you.
Yeah.
Actually, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
So when we finish it, Avery, you might want to queue up that last title, because we need to do that in a second. So I'd just like to thank Avery for coming here today into our studio, which it now has become. Room in my house has become our studio, to be with us today, do the adoption thing. So you still see we've got the backdrop the overlay is an adoption one. So that's just to remind us that within the next week or so, hopefully we'll be able to get these good. We've got some fabulous people, haven't we, Avery, that we really need to talk to. There's some really interesting people. We had Sharon, is it Sharon?
Sharon White.
A few weeks back, who gave a fabulous presentation to us around adoption, and the reason why we want to particularly focus on this is that it's so topical at the moment, and it's being used as an excuse to move kids out of the child protection system, and we believe that perhaps it's not all that right, that we need to look at it more sensibly, and we have the experts coming along to talk to us about what they think in relation to this.
Yep, exactly. So
we'd like to thank you, and we hope that you will tune in again next time for a live feed from the Child Protection Party under CPP Productions. Take care, look after yourself, and thanks, Avery, for being here.